For some players, Magic is all about competing. They're driven by the thrill of improving their play, optimizing decks, and playing in tournaments. For others, Magic is about the experience of building creative decks, sitting down with friends, and creating memorable moments. These players get excited when a new card fits into their tribal dinosaur deck, or when they discover a fresh infinite combo that no one has seen before. Magic's head designer Mark Rosewater has written extensively about different kinds of Magic players, exploring not just why people play, but also what they appreciate in the game. At first, discussions focused on what drives people to play, whether it's the thrill of competition, the desire for creative expression, or the joy of big splashy moments. But in 2005, Matt Cavotta, in an article, introduced a new perspective, shifting the focus to something deeper: how players connect with Magic itself. This led to Mark expanding on this idea, explaining that in his view there are actually two separate spectrums of player identity. We have the why someone plays Magic, but beyond why players engage with Magic, there's also what they appreciate most in the game. Mark called these aesthetic profiles. There are many who love the technical beauty of Magic, appreciating complex mechanics, clever interactions, and elegant game design. They appreciate how things make them think. However, for some, Magic is just as much about the world it builds as it is about the game itself. The breathtaking landscapes, the intricate character designs. To them, Magic isn't just a set of rules where you can print anything onto a card. It's a living world, rich with history, themes, and narratives brought to life by talented artists and designers, where every card is a window into that world, and each set is a chapter in a bigger story. Loving Magic's world isn't just for lore experts. The mood, the tone, and the world itself. When flavor is strong, you can simply feel it. This video is for the people who, like me, value this aspect of Magic. Magic's identity is deeply rooted in fantasy, but that fantasy can take many forms. Some worlds embrace high fantasy, grand kingdoms rise and dragons rule the skies. Others lean into dark fantasy, where corrupt necromancers and eldritch horrors lurk in the shadows. Then there are realms of living fairy tales, where myths and folklore become reality, or worlds where magic and technology intertwine in a steampunk-inspired Magitech society. The planes of Magic are fascinating, and they allow us to glimpse into the intricate structures that define them. The complex political power struggles of Ravnica's guilds and the scheming of Innistrad's vampire noble houses, or the divine cycles of death and rebirth on a Monket. Some of my favorite example of great flavor is the guilds. Take Dimir for example. They control information itself, making them the guild that technically doesn't even exist, and those who seek the truth often forget they ever tried. The cards around this aesthetic are flavorful and memorable. John Cavotta in his article described how a card can be mechanically powerful or beautifully illustrated, but a true home run happens when art, name, mechanics, and flavor all align.
Take Lightning Bolt for example. Its name conveys raw power, its art captures a sudden, violent force, and its mechanic explains itself. The M10 flavor text tells the story of a mage reconnecting with lost power, but for longtime players, it's also a meta reference, a nod to Lightning Bolt's dominance, removal from the formats, and its shocking return. There are so many Magic cards with incredible flavor, and of course I picked Lightning Bolt because I'm biased. But the point isn't about one card, it's about what makes Magic special. If Magic was only a rule set, then this wouldn't matter. Wizards has recently produced a lot of sets that are still within Magic's world, but push the boundaries of its established aesthetic and tone, sometimes in ways that feel out of step with what came before. Karlov Manor and New Capenna lean heavily on modern influences, tailored suits, film noir, and Art Deco cityscapes.
And now with Outlaws of Thunder Junction, Magic is embracing full-on Western tropes with cowboy hats, revolvers, and outlaw gangs. The issue I have with these sets isn't only that the themes feel too modern, it's that they often feel flat and fail to explore the richness of Magic's already engaging and beloved worlds. Karlov Manor was anticipated as a beloved return to Ravnica's intriguing world, where we could explore its underworld of corruption, the scheming guilds, and the fragile balance once held by the Guild Pact. Instead, the set narrows Ravnica's vast intrigue to a single mansion, making the entire plane feel like little more than the backdrop for an Agatha Christie-style mystery. Even Aetherdrift, Magic's most recent set, feels extremely one-note. It technically spans 3 separate planes, yet every card is hyper-focused on vehicles and racing, making the broader world feel small and gimmicky. I really do think the artists have done a fantastic job with many of these cards, but too often these sets feel like a seasonal event skin rather than an immersive world. Magic can evolve, but if designing new sets means stripping them down to a single gimmick, no matter the plane, then it feels like we aren't expanding the multiverse. It feels more like we're shrinking it. When it comes to universes beyond, crossovers bring further challenges. Take The Lord of the Rings and Final Fantasy for example. While these collaborations dilute Magic's own world building, they at least align with its core identity as a fantasy game. Seeing Gandalf or a Tonberry in Magic might feel unusual in a traditional set, but they don't fundamentally break the tone or essence of the game. And Wizards already know this.
It's what we think about when we think of fantasy. It has this mythic dimension to it.
Magic really was inspired in so many ways by The Lord of the Rings. It's the original fantasy, it's the classic.
And it seems a very natural crossover.
There's a clear understanding that these worlds are also vast and filled with mystery, magic, and mythical creatures. This makes their inclusion feel more natural than, say, for example, a modern-day setting. That said, these crossovers still come at a cost. When Magic borrows from existing fantasy franchises, instead of expanding its own, it risks making its own world feel secondary. The increasing number of universes beyond products increases the chance of a rushed, less than ideal set, and with their integration into standard, it raises the stakes. A poorly executed or rushed set can hurt the game's identity drastically, and with 6 sets a year, the odds of doing this increase even further. And if a set has to be rushed, it will never be the one with a licensing deal attached to it. I've talked about how in-universe Magic sets feel shallow and gimmicky, and instead of crafting deep and immersive worlds, many recent sets rely on recognizable tropes and cultural references. Now, Universes Beyond isn't just increasing in volume, it's also intruding into standard, diluting Magic's own universe. The relentless pace of new set releases makes it feel like Wizards is prioritizing crossovers over their own world building. But my biggest frustration is when Magic crosses over with non-fantasy properties. At that point, it's not just diluting its world building, it's compromising the very essence of the game. Spider-Man swinging through skyscrapers and juggling his day job belongs in a superhero universe, not in the fantasy world we know. When characters and settings from entirely different genres are forced into Magic, the result feels unnatural, breaking the carefully crafted tone and aesthetic that make the game special. Previously, Universes Beyond was separate from Magic's main game. You could either engage with it or ignore it. But now, with crossovers entering standard and non-rotating formats, avoiding them isn't an option anymore. This isn't just an experiment, it's a fundamental shift in what Magic is and will be in the future. Yes, Magic can evolve, and yes, crossovers bring in new players and perspectives, but I really do think Magic should remain a fantasy game at its core, not just a platform for anything and everything. I accept that Magic is a 30-year-old game with a long history of weird flavor interactions, but there's a difference between fantasy worlds colliding and removing the fantasy element entirely. For me, the line is clear, and we're crossing it with the upcoming Spider-Man set. If Wizards of the Coast insists on expanding universes beyond, then at the very least these crossovers should fit naturally within Magic's world, not force the game to bend around them. But it's not just crossovers. Magic's in-universe sets should also have a deeper connection to the game's history, tone, and aesthetic. Not every play needs to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes just focusing on leaning into the depth and maturity that Magic already has, rather than surface-level visits before moving on to the next gimmick, is worth it. Magic's world deserves more than just a one-off exploration. They should have narratives that evolve over time, allowing players to become invested in their histories and future. Build things worth returning to, and then make the return exciting. I believe that fewer, deeper sets that build rich evolving worlds are far better than a constant stream of shallow, forgettable stories. If there are so many sets being released that both the designers and the players don't have enough time or resources to properly focus on each one, then perhaps it's time to reduce the number of sets being pumped out. The constant influx of new cards is already making Standard feel almost unplayable, because the format experiences essentially a soft rotation every 8 weeks, forcing players to continuously update their decks just to keep up, often before they even receive the cards they ordered from the previous set. When I was a kid, I loved collecting Pokemon cards, but my brother's Magic cards on the bookshelf felt different. They felt darker, more serious. It was a world full of mystery, and for me, Magic has never been just a game. It was always something more immersive and mature. Now I see Magic losing that. It's becoming a mix of pop culture trends and borrowed IPs instead of the rich fantasy world I fell in love with. I know not everyone feels as strongly about this, but for many of us, Magic's identity isn't just a preference, it's what makes us love the game in the first place. I don't want to be a doomer about this. I don't think it's too late to change anything. Magic still has the potential to make more incredible worlds, tell deep and immersive stories, and recapture the sense of wonder that made so many of us fall in love with it in the first place. If Wizards focuses on making something truly great, I'll be the first to support it. Magic is at its best when it knows what it is, and it was never just a brand. It was a world. Thanks for watching. I've worked on this video on and off for about a month, and I've changed the script and re-edited countless times. I really wanted to express my opinions very clearly here, and if you disagree, feel free to share your thoughts, but keep it respectful in the comment section, because if you clicked on this video you probably care a lot about Magic and want to see it be the best version it can be as well. Thanks so much for the love on the previous videos, appreciate it a ton. I hope you have a good one. Take care.